Hello guys, Dr.
Pitanger
here, and today will be a very special video because we are gonna analyze the run Clay made and actually won in IS2, and during which I was observing and helping him a bit. So, little disclaimer before we begin this video, this is obviously a very different analysis from usual, simply because first of all we need to explain what is a Clay. I was a teacher for 3 years and we had very different profiles among students. So a Clay is basically the kind of pretty agitated child who has a hard time focusing on one task specifically, but at the same time is eager to do it. So with this kind of pupils, what I would usually do is I would let them do their thing and only correct them when they were doing something blatantly wrong. So this was pretty much my approach with Clay. I simply let him play the way he wanted, and if there was a huge mistake, I would instantly tell him so he would never try and do it again. I would not simply tell him, oh, so you first of all you need to do that and then this and then after you've done this. No, because I knew Clay wouldn't follow. He's like that. He's just like that. That's the way he is. So yeah, I felt I needed to explain how Clay works, quote unquote, before this run begins, because you will see that there will be some little mistakes here and there, and that I didn't really point because, well, it was basically impossible, right? You can point all the little mistakes that Clay does. It's basically impossible. But I only pointed the huge mistakes that he should try and not recreate in the future. So yeah, let's start. So I told him to start with Leader Squad and Whistle, because obviously it's pretty much the strongest start you can have, right? Leader Squad allows him to leak some enemies without any consequence, and Whistle is, well, it's Whistle, right?
Spot, you could please.
So here, as you can see, I told him the importance of aggro, right? Because I still think Clay doesn't know much how aggro works. So I told him deploy Whistle first and then deploy Spot. So as you can see, the caster died because, well, he deployed it afterwards, and that's not really an issue because Whistle can take care of this stage by herself, right? So I don't even know if he understands that right now, but I mean, at least I try to tell him by giving examples. I'm a huge advocate for giving examples to explain the rules, as opposed to giving the rules and then giving examples.
Emergency downtime reclamation. I've had it just had a stroke. Why does he have
As you can see, I didn't even say anything here because Clay knew he wanted to pick emergency ops because, well, emergency ops give the most rewards, right? So you will see this a lot in this analysis where I literally even don't have the time to tell him to do something, but fortunately here he made the right decision.
They do a salute with a gun?
I haven't.
See, for example, here, he didn't understand that aggro is important, and I didn't even have the time to tell him, no, deploy Whistle first, and then deploy Spot. Fortunately, this only ended up losing him like 1 HP, I believe. So yeah, this was probably one of the first mistake, right? It's to deploy Spot first and not deploy Whistle first. And see, now the issue is that Whistle is deployed last, and the Crystal is deployed first, so the Mortar guy is gonna attack the Crystal, and Whistle is not impervious to AoE damage, so she's gonna take damage too, and that's the main issue. If we had, for example, deployed Whistle there, the crystals, for example, there or there, and then Spot here, then Spot would have taken the aggro and there would have been no issue. So as you can see, oddly enough, only 1 HP lost.
Oh, my gold!
Doesn't matter. Like, the stage is over, basically.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I really didn't have the time to explain, but usually treasure chests in IS2 are really not worth defending. They only award you a 1 original ingot, so it doesn't matter at all. Particularly since you can't reroll the shop too.
I should have put her anywhere else, like over there.
Melantha there was actually a good idea because, well, the enemies that will spawn here will always be pretty much closer to the blue box. So Whistle is always gonna attack them, unless these enemies come here, but as you can see, she keeps them in check. So no, Melantha there is actually much better because Whistle is gonna destroy all enemies coming here anyway. So as you can see at the beginning, Clay didn't understand that the supply station, well, you can use it on every map and it doesn't expire. I think it took him up until floor 3 in order to understand this or something like this. And also a common mistake that you can find among new players is that, as you can see, he has used his skill for, well, trash enemies, and now if there's a special enemy, then Whistle won't have her skill ready. So that's a tip for more advanced players, I feel. But again, I have reviewed actually quite a lot of runs at this point, so I feel like this is the kind of tips I want to give. Here, honestly, I was thinking hard, but there's actually no need for that. Pretty much every path you choose is gonna be right, because as you can see, you can deploy, for example, Whistle there. The main issue is this AoE caster, if the Revenants spawn here or there, then he might hit Whistle, but at the same time, it's not like he's gonna kill it, and also Spot can hear her, so it doesn't really matter where you deploy Whistle there. As you can see, the Revenant was deployed there, but Whistle killed this guy so fast that it doesn't really matter. You can even deploy Spot there, he's gonna take the aggro, so the future AoE casters aren't gonna hit Whistle, and Spot can hear her, so yeah. Doesn't matter that much. As you can see, he didn't even need the skill for Crown Slayer, so again, just to emphasize the fact that deploying Whistle wherever wouldn't have mattered anyway.
You want me to pick Dorothy?
Mm-hmm.
Not glad.
Here I was thinking of a way to keep Phantom in check, because well, with Whistle you have the damage, and now you want a way to root, to slow Phantom, this kind of stuff, and Dorothy felt like it was a good pick, particularly since it's also one of the, as you can see, one of the only specialists that he has actually E2'd.
This is extremely easy.
Yeah, this was extremely easy because you could have deployed Whistle, the Revenant would have tanked because these things are actually pretty tanky, and he would have simply have to wait for S3 Whistle, and in any case, even if the Revenant died, you could have simply like deployed Spot or this kind of stuff. I have no idea why Clay decided to skip this one. This was easy. This was the easiest stage he could have gotten. Here the top path was probably a bit better simply because combat ops are generally better, even though there's a downtime recreation, and encounters can be very hit and miss, and usually between 2 combats and 1 useless node and 1 combat and 2 encounters, I feel like the value of 2 combats, at least in IS2, is just a bit better.
Oh,
No,
I didn't know
you
that.
can use it on every fight.
Oh, well then it means
Doesn't
that, then I'll just save it out of principle. And
See, I told him he couldn't use it, and yet he still refused to use it for some reason.
if you get ugly, then you have... You want to...
Yeah, here I urge him to pick a Vanguard because, well, he didn't have any, right? And also, I think he decided to go for Myrtle. It would have probably been a better idea to go for Fang, but again, this was not really consequential. I let him do his thing. What the fuck is that Myrtle face? Anyway, yeah, here I'm explaining how you are supposed to handle the stage if you have leader squad. You simply deploy a range unit, trigger these 3 guys, let them go, and then you can do whatever you want. You can deploy like melee units there to defend. This is usually how you're supposed to handle this stage if you have leader squad. It's a much harder stage if you don't have leader squad, but if you have leader squad, this is pretty easy. And here, as you can see, he didn't understand that he had to act actually pretty quick. As you can see, a bit panicking there. The issue is he could have deployed Whistle on time if you see one little detail. Do you see the little detail? Myrtle hasn't used her fucking skill. As you can see here, if Myrtle had used her skill, he could have deployed, for example, Melanta just to kill this guy and then deploy Whistle after, for example, retreating the Melanta. But the issue is he took a while to activate his Myrtle skill. This is something you can see on his other videos, is that Clay really underestimates how quick you have to act when using Myrtle skill, because the longer you take to activate Myrtle skill, the slower you're gonna generate DP, and then the slower you're gonna be able to deploy your units. So here I told him to deploy Spot for 2 specific reasons. One, he was gonna lose some more HP, right, because another guy was coming. And 2, I was thinking if he deployed Whistle now, he could trigger both of these guys, let them leak, and then probably kill this one. Spot would probably be able to tank. As you can see, this plan worked. It was pretty much a backup plan to the strategy I had in mind initially, but I mean, it worked.
And please use S2.
S2? Why would I use that?
So as you can see, Clay vastly underestimates Amiya's S2. Just to make a quick comparison between S1 and S2, S2 is supposed to deal more damage and also deal true damage, which is the most important part. She attacks 2 enemies at the same time, she has more attack during the skill. The main issue is that she can only use this skill once every map, but in most cases this is actually a non-issue. As you can see on IS5, the true damage is actually very useful because it destroys the Spines of Epoch very easily. In IS2, well, there's cases where skill 1 might be a bit better, right? But usually the S2 is much better on most maps. Never do this. Like, this is a scam. Unless you are out of shops, you're on the very last floor, and you don't have any original ingots equals attack speed item. That's the only reason why you would do this.
You can basically just let them go.
Yeah, so I explained this. When I say basically, I mean 4 out of 5. So because you have leader squad, you can let 4 of these 5 guys go. Usually what you want to do is at least try to kill the mortar, because on this map your units spawn with half HP, unfortunately, and the mortar is gonna keep on attacking your units, and that could be an issue at some point. So what I like to do is usually deploy Melantha and try to kill this guy. If you have a tankier unit that can do that, it's also fine. And once the mortar is done, you can let these guys go if you're on leader squad. Otherwise, you need to carefully deploy your units, for example, here and facing top, or here facing bottom, or here facing top, you know, this kind of stuff. And usually it works. As you can see later, Amia is gonna kill one or two of these guys, I don't remember. As you can see, he panicked and deployed Myrtle and Spot right next to each other. So obviously the mortar is now dealing damage to 2 people. So probably one of the main mistakes there, because again, you deploy Whistledale, a Revenant is deployed right next to her, and then the mortar guy is gonna attack Whistledale. So what he should have done is simply wait until he has enough DP. As you can see, there was absolutely no reason to deploy Whistledale this early. There's no enemy coming. So he should have waited just a bit, deploy Whistledale when you have enough DP to also deploy, for example, Amia, and deploy Amia to try and kill, for example, these 2 guys. This would have worked. As you can see, I have no idea why he deployed Dorothy there. I think he thought that she would have enough range to kill these guys, but no. As you can see, this was a very desperate move, like deploying Amia there just to kill one of these guys, so these 3 enemies would leak, and then he would not lose any HP thanks to leader squad. But usually that's not how you're supposed to handle the stage, right? This is usually a pretty desperate move, and this was a desperate move. As you can see, he has deployed Melantha there as a lane holder, and Melantha is not supposed to be deployed here as a lane holder. Melantha is supposed to be deployed as a pretty much fast redeploy operator to try and kill these guys. With Melantha, you can deploy her at least twice in order to kill 2 enemies, like 3 enemies even, with these 2 guys. So yeah, that's how you're supposed to handle the stage usually.
Talking about the...
So the backup plan worked, but again, I want to emphasize the fact that this is not how you're supposed to handle the stage.
These guys are invisible, so it's a bit annoying.
I was thinking the top, because then she would cover all of this.
Yeah, Clay's suggestion here was actually pretty good, because indeed, if you deploy Whistledale there, you can hit all the drones. If she had only been deployed there, she would have only been able to hit this guy, and this guy. And this one shouldn't have been handled by another unit. So yeah, this was actually a very good suggestion. The main thing is that with this, you have to hit enemies that come exclusively here, which means you can't afford to, for example, deploy another unit forward and remove their invisibility when the enemies come. So this is a bit bolder, but at the same time, it can work. As you can see, his units are actually pretty tanky. We let 2 enemies go there, because that's another perk of leader squad. You can pretty much see leader squad as gain quote-unquote DP, because, well, you can simply afford to leak some enemies until you can get enough DP to deploy your units. So yeah, you can see it this way too. Usually this cruise placement is not that good, simply because enemies will come here, and so it's actually a better idea to have her deployed there for 2 reasons. First of all, you can hit enemies that come here when the invisible is removed because they are blocked, and second of all, she would have been close to Spot, and therefore she would have been able to be healed. Another option though is to deploy a Mia, for example, there, and therefore she's gonna be able to heal Cruz. I told him to put the station there simply because, well, that would give Whistledale more skills, and with more skills you can easily kill Jetman. And as you can see, Cruz died from this guy pretty much instantly. What he could have done to prevent this, beside deploying Cruz there, is simply use Whistledale's skill, so this would have spawned more Revenants and draw the aggro.
No, stop it. No, whatever.
If he had used Whistledale's skill just a bit earlier, it would have probably been able to hit this drone. Ultimately, I don't think it matters. And yeah, he deployed Amia there, which was very, very suboptimal, because as you can see, she doesn't heal anybody there. So yeah, this was a bit of a clusterfuck, but in the end, it didn't matter that much. Even with all of these mistakes, right? Amia not healing anybody, Cruz being deployed far from Spot, so Spot can't heal her, and she died twice. Even with this, thanks to Leader Squad, he didn't lose a single HP.
Get the collectible first. Oh,
yeah, at the end of floor 3, always get the collectible first. Even though this time, well, these were all pretty bad. Like, Ribbon of Honor, we didn't really want Ribbon of Honor, because this wasn't the strategy to kill Phantom, clearly. The strategy we had in mind was, well, root Phantom and kill it with Whistledale. So, of course, Ribbon of Honor doesn't work that well with this.
Daria. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Saria helps a lot for the first boss because, well, she can heal all allies in the vicinity. There was a chance that we would be able to get Logos and she would increase the arts damage. I feel like she was particularly good there.
I would just deploy like Myrtle to try and get some SP.
So when I say deploy Myrtle, I obviously mean don't deploy Myrtle in this guy's range.
Nope, get the points first, get the...
What Clay still doesn't understand is that redeploying your unit gives you back half of the DP you spend, and Myrtle costs 8, so that means that redeploying her gives you back 4 DP, and in the second that she used her skill, she at most generated like 2 DP, which means by not redeploying her, he factually lost 2 DP.
Okay, deploy Whistle.
Oh, yeah, you're dead, you're dead.
Alright, so he understood that this was the perfect placement for Whistle. Like, there are still enemies coming here, but usually you can even leak them with Leader Squad, so it doesn't matter that much. So as you can see, I told him to use Saria's S2 for the stage, because, well, it's a stage where you actually want your units to be clumped up together, and on this kind of specific stage where your units are very much together, and also there's poison, Saria's S2 has actually more value than S1. So here, another little mistake from Clay. He should have given her the station from here, because Whistle can only deploy Revenants in her range, and this is also part of her range, so obviously you should have deployed it here, but in the end it didn't really matter.
It's an argument to recruit Ethan there, but I don't think you should. Yeah, get another reservoir.
Yeah, I told him he could recruit Ethan even at E1 because, well, E1 Ethan still has his S2, and S2 Ethan is extremely powerful against the boss, even with no module, even with no mastery, even with nothing. As long as Ethan doesn't get attacked, and again, it's an ambusher, so he shouldn't really be attacked, then it's gonna be a lot of value for the boss, but the boss deals AoE damage, Ethan could still die, it costs 2 hope only to get a level 30 E1 Ethan, so it wasn't that good.
Tranquility works with Saria, so it's not bad. Yeah, I would get Tranquility, probably.
Here I was thinking we could use Saria as a last resort to tank the boss, and that would be very helpful, maybe in some cases, and so that's why I told him to pick Tranquility. Also because it makes a lot of stages much easier too. Alpine Visitor isn't even worth talking about. Like, this is literally, you deploy Whistle there, and you wait.
I would get Ansel or Hibiscus, doesn't matter.
Rewards have been collected. Ooh, a safe house.
Yeah, so when you don't have any medic, usually in a lot of cases, Hibiscus or Ansel would work. Obviously, a better choice here would have been a Wandering Medic, but as you can see, Clay doesn't have any upgraded Wandering Medic. He doesn't even have a Wandering Medic, period. So yeah.
Yeah, I should probably E2 Saria, actually.
You won't be sorry for doing that.
Again, I'm still in that logic that we're gonna probably need Saria to tank a bit against the boss. So yeah, E2ing Saria took priority because I was thinking Dorothy's S2 is probably gonna be the skill we're gonna use anyway, so it's not like her being E2 is gonna matter that much, whereas Saria's extra stats when being E2 is gonna matter a lot.
So actually let the first one go, because the mortar is gonna attack the Revenant, so that could be an issue.
Again, the same logic that if you deploy Whistle early, the mortar is gonna attack the Revenant and Whistle is gonna get hurt, so you actually need to wait in order to have enough DP. Of course, there was another option. It would have been to put Melanta in the team to try and kill this guy, but I mean, again, we have Leader Squad, might as well use the perks of Leader Squad, right?
Ah yes, using Metal Skill when you have 99 DP.
The famous Myrtle skill use when he has 99 DP, yeah.
We get punished. It's okay.
Alright, Abestos, right?
Yeah, we get punished because if we had E2 Dorothy, then we would have gotten the Defender voucher and then we would have been able to E2 Saria, but doesn't matter.
Yeah, we'll pick Beagle.
Who I think... Oh.
Yeah, again, we don't need something else for a Defender. Like, Gummy wouldn't have done much. We have already enough healing, in my opinion, and Beagle having more defense is probably gonna matter much more than Gummy.
Both shots.
Yeah, as you can see, there were 2 shops at the bottom, but he would have had to take an emergency off. And, well, Clay was chickening out, as usual. And so he decided to go for the top path, which was much safer, but at the same time didn't have the value of the shops, and therefore we let 13 Iridium ingots rot.
Purely on the idea that she's going to take me home and step on my balls.
As you can see, Clay takes some good decision by himself. For example, here he saw that Amia was gonna die, and he decided to use a skill, so very good decision. Again, I don't really want to interrupt with his train of thinking, only when he's doing something really bad. So yeah, I was really afraid of red mist because, well, in my personal experience when I was playing IS2, I mean, it was a long time ago, we didn't have all the units we have right now, but I have lost so many runs on emergency red mist. This is a horrible stage. He was starting to lose HP because the red Naruto runners were coming here, and I told him, maybe you should use Whistle in order for them not to leak. Again, he should have used Whistle skill there instead of yapping, but I mean, I was like, okay, it's only 1 HP. Usually when you lose against the last boss, it doesn't matter if it's 1 HP or not.
People that are screaming at me that I'm not reading and why don't I read and why please won't you read.
As you can see there, he should have used Whistle.
But apparently
she was ready for... I think Clay doesn't even know that Whistle skill uses ammos, so as long as she doesn't use the ammos, her skill won't deplete, so you can use her skill whenever it's ready.
I could take, can't I? Oh no, I can't get a support character. Oh, I just screwed.
So, as you can hear, I told him to pick a caster in order to have more damage, and he picked a medic. But again, here another medic wasn't that bad because his only proper quote-unquote medic is Hibiscus at this point. So, having another medic is not the end of the world.
Build Degenbrecher, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Degenbrecher would have been a very good option if we had been able to E2 her. Unfortunately, we didn't because, well, Degenbrecher ignores defense. So yeah, extremely good to deal with bosses that usually have a lot of defense. So here the strategy I envisioned was to deploy Whistle there to kill the red girls and basically stall phantom bits with the mines. But as you will see later on in the video, I made a crucial mistake, unfortunately. But yeah, this is a really good placement because, well, you can kill all the girls and then you have all of this range in order to kill Phantom whenever he comes, and usually you'll be able to hit with 6 shots, so it's not bad. But the main issue here is that this will probably require him to do an entire turn, which is usually not that bad, but you'll see the mistake. I had forgotten some enemies would still spawn here and Whistle would hit them, so now the issue is she only has 2 shots, which is clearly not that much, unfortunately, and also she's gonna waste them on the 2 marionettes, so this was a very bad mistake from me. I shouldn't have told Clay to use a skill now. So as you can see, we dealt no damage to Phantom, unfortunately. This would have worked if I told him to use Whistle later. So yeah, entirely my fault there.
It's okay. Okay.
And here is the main mistake that I didn't even notice, even though it was right in front of my eyes. Phantom, because there's a Revenant there, decided to attack the Revenant, and Phantom deals AoE damage, which in terms
whenever he passes through the box,
killed Whistle. So this was entirely my fault. I should have told Clay to remove the Revenant, but I was so tunnel vision into my own thing that I forgot to tell him that. It wouldn't have been an issue too, because as you can see, Whistle had another Revenant, so she would have still been invisible. So yeah, my fault there. It would have been much easier if she managed to stay alive. Also, as you can see, the Dorothy placement was really suboptimal. I should have probably told him to retreat her whenever Lucian came here and simply redeploy her in a way that she can't be hit anymore. So for example, here or there. That's a huge pile of mistakes piling up, and it almost cost us the run. Very good idea of Clay to use the silence drone there. Here, I told him don't deploy Spot, because what would have happened if Clay decided to deploy Spot exactly there when the mine wore off? He would have instantly triggered the teleport, gone there, and would have been over.
No, there's no, he's... Oh my god! Come on, come on, come on! Yes! Yes!
So yeah, this was my review of the run. Not many mistakes from Clay. Obviously, the main mistake you can see throughout the whole video is failing to understand how aggro works, and my own mistake at the end was a series of mistakes, well, not redeploying Dorothy, telling him to use Whistle too early, this kind of stuff. But in the end, it still worked. Well played, Clay. You managed to clear IS2. And yeah, thank you guys for watching this video. Leave a like, subscribe, and see you in the next.